Today we need to talk about the legal wars that are officially exploded between PSG and Kylian Mbappé. L'équipe revealed that Mbappé is claiming 260 million euros from the club, with everything on the list: unpaid bonuses, requalification of his contract, unfair dismissal, moral harassment, even failure to guarantee safety, the works. But here's the problem. From everything we know, both publicly and behind the scenes, PSG and Mbappé had made a clear agreement in 2023 to protect both parties, financially and legally, regardless of his departure. And now it looks very much like Mbappé is walking back on that deal to squeeze every euro possible on the way out. So in today's video, I'm breaking down the numbers, the legal basis, what's true, what's posturing, and why, in my opinion, Mbappe's strategy is not only aggressive, it's borderline contradictory with his own public statement. So here we are, Mbappé lawsuit reaching the final stages. The case was heard in front of a tribunal in Paris, specialized in labor disputes. Obviously, they don't have cases like this every day, and so it's very much a high-profile case in France. And as part of this, obviously, the whole strategies came out on both sides. What Mbappé is alleging, what PSG is saying, what each of the parties is asking, and kind of the justification that each of them makes. And I think it gives us a very, very clear sense of the reality, not only of the case, but what happened in 22, 23, and 24 that went from Mbappé extending his contract to Mbappé leaving on a free and going to Real Madrid. And I think based on all of this, we can get a sense of, who's in the right, who's in the wrong. Obviously, my opinion, I recognize, is entirely biased, but at the same time, I'm going to share what I think, and from the extensive research that I've done, what I think is going on here. So, the origins of the conflict. In 2022, Mbappé extended his contract with PSG at the general surprise, because people thought he was already getting ready to leave. He extends for what is publicly announced as a 3-year extension that would take him to 2025. The reality we learn later is that he signed a new contract for 2 years plus one as an option that can be activated by both parties. So it's really a 2-year 2 plus 1 extension. What we don't know yet is that while Mbappé signs his contract, he already knows that he has no intention of actioning that extra year. And so when he poses for picture with Nasser Al-Khelaïfi, with a jersey that says 2025, there's already things in the work, and he knows that he's not going to stay beyond 2024. And so all of this comes to light, and we get to the summer of 2023, so the year after he extended his contract, and now we know that the player is now 1 year away from being able to leave on a free. PSG knows that, has heard from the player who sent the club a letter saying that he didn't intend to action that optional extra year. He sent that in a letter to the club. Madness. And so the club at this point goes, okay, fine, but then we want to sell you so we can recoup some of our money. And progressively throughout that summer, the club umps up the pressure on Mbappé, takes him off of the squad, doesn't take him with the squad on a training and prep trip to Japan. And so progressively, the pressure is on him. And they tell him that, either he goes and the club can get a transfer fee, or if he wants to stay, then he's going to spend 1 year not playing. Mbappé at this point turns down opportunities to move, and that's something that's been revealed now. There was a 300 million offer from Saudi Arabia that he asked the club to turn down, and obviously no one can force him to move there, so the club turned it down. And in the last hour of the mercato, I don't even know. I was going to say, I think there was an offer from Real Madrid, but in the end, I don't think so, actually. I think they were just waiting for him to go on a free. The player refuses to move, is the short of it. And at that point, the word on the street and what filters out is that at the end of the summer, the club and the player find an agreement in which, like, I'll put it on screen because I think it's really interesting. That's a quote that Mbappé gave to the media during that season, his last season in PSG. And at some point he says, because he says like, oh, middle of the season, he said, oh, I still haven't decided what I'm going to do. And so he says, whatever my decision, we managed to protect all parties. With the agreement I reached with the president this summer, whatever my decision is, we managed to protect all parties to preserve the club's calm for the challenges ahead. That's the most important thing. Let's say the rest is secondary. And so, like, middle of this last season in PSG, he's doing this tap dance routine of, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll extend, maybe I won't, like, I'm not really sure. But we found a deal last summer, and whatever happens, like, the club is protected, and they're not gonna be screwed if I go. They'll make their money essentially. And he had said before, like earlier in his PSG career, there's a very famous quote of Mbappé saying, "Oh, I'll never leave for free. Make sure the club gets a transfer fee for me because like I'm a kid from Bondy and it's my city, it's my club, blah blah blah." Like, typical Mbappé, always the good role. But this one is really important because it says in the media that there's an agreement that he reached with the president in the summer. And that's the central element of the case because now PSG is holding him to that agreement and him is trying to walk it back and say, no, that agreement like never existed. And so I want all of my money and I want like damages and extra things. And this is kind of like the next thing in this story is what Mbappé is asking of PSG, and that just came out in the trial. It's insane. The 260 million that he's claiming. So he wants requalification of his fixed term contract, which is standard, footballers, they've got like 3, 4, 5 years contract, whatever, into permanent contract, which is something that has been done in the past. It's been done for Rabiot, actually, who was also in conflict with PSG. And they said that he stayed. I think Rabiot 9 years in the club, and so like the tribunal requalified his temporary contract into a permanent contract in regard of the length that he stayed at the club and like the fact that he got poorly treated on his way out. The problem for Mbappé is that there was a law that was passed in between, and so like the full length of his contract cannot be requalified. And so it like legally like it's a very, very shaky argument. Then like because he's asking for his contract to be requalified, if it's requalified into a permanent contract, then he wants his indemnities for his notice period when leaving the club. He wants severance pay because he's saying essentially that the club fired him, which is insane since it's the one who wanted to leave. Unfair dismissal. Once again, he's the one that was leaving and that didn't want to renew his contract. And then he wants what was the deal that was made the summer before he left, which was like the part that was left of his signing bonus that the club had to pay and that would have been withheld in exchange for him leaving on a free. The last few months of his salary, same thing, that would have been withheld, the last 3 months of salary. Ethics bonus that get tied as well to the contract, and then like he goes into additional stuff that he's asking. So undeclared work, meaning like the club not paying payroll taxes in France and health insurance and so on and so forth. And so he's asking for damages for that. I don't know how he justifies undeclared work, but whatever. Moral harassment, yes, because it's so hard to have to chase the club for money that he agreed to give away, and then disloyal execution of the employment contract. It's like you made a deal, man, just live with it. And then finally, 18.75 million for failure to meet safety obligations. So this is really the point where, like, my God, like, what the hell are we talking about? Like, really, what the hell are we talking about? And the reality is that the case is shaky as well because Rabiot, like the Rabiot case and the requalification of the contract, essentially, like they requalified the contract from temporary to permanent because Rabiot was put to the side of the professional team for the full year when he wanted to leave on a free, and was essentially prohibited from training and playing with the squad, which didn't happen to Mbappé. And the only way he can make the case that it would have happened is saying like, oh yeah, but it didn't happen because I made a deal with the club. So if he's saying like his contract needs to be requalified, he's essentially admitting that he made a deal with the club. So like the legal proposal that he's putting forward just absolutely doesn't make sense. Flies in the face of his public declaration. And like, you know, the amount that he's seeking are just, you know, purely like madness, like really madness. There's no other way of looking at it. And so what is PSG? What is PSG countering? Well, PSG is saying like, you know, like when they're saying like they don't want to pay, and they took this all the way to trial, and they didn't want to settle, and they don't want to recognize any wrong on their part. They say like there was an agreement that was made with the player in the summer of 2023, in which if he left on a free, he agreed to give up some of his bonuses, some of his salaries. Essentially, I think back then the number was at about like 90 million euros in saving for the club, which, you know, would pay for some of the fees that they never got on Mbappé, which is, you know, not a perfect agreement by any means, because the player was worth like somewhere around 150 to 100 million euros. So the club already in this agreement is like kind of agreeing to take a lowered fee and a lowered amount. And now in trial, they're also asking for damages because it's a trial, and like, you know, like no reason not to. And essentially they say like that number actually differed on what PSG is asking, but the number that came back is 180 million, essentially like split between damages and the fact that because Mbappé hid that he had no intention of extending his contract from the get-go, he actually prevented PSG from making a sale on him, and so cost the club money by that measure. And so they're asking for damages on this particular basis. You know, I think like a little bit of a long shot, obviously, like legally as well. But it's more the fact of presenting two sets of arguments, so that there's a balancing approach in terms of what people are asking. And so then, like, what's likely to happen? Honestly, I don't really care that much what happens. I think realistically, I think it's probably like a 60% chance that Mbappé gets his way, because despite all of the public declaration, which are actually something, it's not nothing. Him saying that there was an agreement is something that can be admissible in a trial, but obviously is not as strong as a signed contract or a signed addendum to the contract, which doesn't look like it exists. And so one of the arguments that Mbappe's lawyers are making is, oh yeah, but like, you know, if there was an agreement, like, come on, PSG have 250 lawyers, they're a big club, so like they should have put it on paper and get someone to sign on it. Which is like, actually, like, that's a relatively fair point. But at the same time, yes, the fact that the player himself went on TV and said, we found a deal, and, you know, I don't want to screw the club, and we're going to find a way so that everyone is okay. It also like weighs for something. Still, at the end, given the way that French labor law tends to favor the workers versus the company, the chances are that, yeah, Mbappé is gonna get his way. I don't think he's gonna get like the full 260 million or whatever. Like, this feels completely ridiculous. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets, I think, like the contested part was somewhere in between like 60 million or so. So something like, yeah, so like 40 million in signing bonus, 19 million pay and paid leaves, 2 million CETIX bonus. So that's 61. Yeah, probably like 61 million or so, maybe a little bit more, but yeah, like that's likely what is going to happen. In the end, whatever happens, the tribunal is going to give his verdict mid-December, I think is what we heard. We'll see what happens then. Whatever happens, it's widely expected that whoever loses is going to appeal. So this is going to keep going. The club is essentially saying that, like, even if Mbappé has the better case, they're gonna essentially take it all the way, and they're gonna like make the player work to get that money because they don't think he should get it, and they feel very, very hard done that if there was a gentleman's agreement, that the player is not withholding it, and that's just like not the words that we should be living in, and so they're gonna make him work for the money, and like. Says, I honestly like I don't see any reason why not. You know, like if you want that money that you said you were gonna give up, yeah, sure, like maybe you're entitled for it legally, but you're gonna have to work all the way and like you know go into every tribunal and have to get your face plastered across every headline in a newspaper saying that you want those kind of ridiculous amounts just because like you're pissed off that PSG won the Champions League without you. That's the reality of it. So anyway, this is kind of where we are with this like daylight robbery. Really, this is what's like looking like to happen. We'll see what happens and what the tribunal says in a few weeks. For now, this is kind of where we're at. Let me know in the comment what you think of this. Do you think, because I do recognize that a lot of people say, yeah, like PSG has nothing to gain here, so just like cut a deal, let it go, give him the money and whatever, and like move on. For me, I disagree. I think like you know, let's make him work for it. But let me know what you think, where you land on that debate. Leave a like on the video. If anything, for the legal research I did. And as always, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. Please hit the bell to get notified of future videos. And tribunal or not, ici c'est pareil.